Montag is first introduced as the main character of the story, and the reader is told that the guy is a firefighter. However, the book takes an interesting turn when the book says that the firefighters are starting the fires instead of putting them out. Then we learn that Guy lives in a society very different from ours, where books are illegal and are supposed to be burnt at all times, no matter the circumstances. Guy decides that something isn't right, and most of the book is about his journey figuring out why books are so important to the society and why people need them. This raises the question as to how a society gets to this point in the first place. A society is so lost that they are burning every book in existence. It is seen later on that the society has been drained of any sort of emotion or opinion, which is the main reason books are being burned. In the story, the main antagonist of the story, Captain Beatty, says, "They were given the new job as custodians of our peace of mind, the focus of our understandable and rightful dread of being inferior. Officials, censors, judges, and executors. That's you, Montag, and that's me." That was on page 56. This wording from Bradbury really explains the main moral of the story. Firefighters, who are peace givers and lifesavers in our society, have become chaos bringers and official censors, as said. The firefighters represent a government in a way, and they are what has caused the suppression of the people's access to opinions and ideas, which is why their society is emotionless and boring. Further, in a Fahrenheit 451 book review by an author by the name of Solary, the author writes, "Fahrenheit 451 even reminds us of the mass society judgments that lead to self-censorship. The question remains as to how a society would get to this point, but with this, Solary reminds us that it is likely that if judgment of others' opinions is what would hurt a society this badly. Because people were hurt by the judgment, it is likely that when the government decided to just get rid of opinions altogether by burning all the books." The ending of the book was not very concluding in my opinion. It left an open door in readers' minds as to what could have happened next. However, readers will never get to find out, which is slightly disappointing. Did books make a comeback? And if so, did it heal the broken society they were living in? No one will ever know. The amount of details when it came to the backstory was also a little lackluster. It would have been nice to know a little more on how the society came to burning all books, as readers were not told very much. This would help keep our present-day society from falling into the same trap. Finally, there were a few unnecessary characters in the story. The characters that were brought into scene at the very end, the other rebels. It was nice to know that Montag wasn't alone in questioning their society. However, because the author did not further detail these characters and ended the book right as they showed up, there was no real connection or feelings for those characters. They were just there. Montag was still the only one readers cared for. For some readers, some of the content may be a little bit violent. For one, Captain Beatty was burned entirely alive. The scene was also quite descriptive and may be gross to read for some. Further, a woman is also burned alive, as she stayed with her books as the firefighters burned them, and in turn, her as well. In other words, committing suicide, which wouldn't be the best idea to spread to particular audiences. Finally, the government simply kills an innocent man. The government cannot find Montag when he escapes their search, so to cover it up in front of the public, they kill an innocent man and call him Montag. They do this as if they hadn't, many would have questioned the government, which they surely don't want. This may be confusing for some readers, as many feel the government is entitled to keep the people safe, but shown by this scene, that may not always be the case. Situations like these would raise a lot of controversy and protest. One of the best things about this story was the shocking, but weirdly interesting plot. Never would I have thought could someone write a book centered entirely around books. The plot shows us how important little things like books are to our society. Another pro is how well the author develops Montag's character. Montag changes from the murderer to the victim throughout the story and begins to question his society. This conveys to the reader that you should always question what's around you, as sometimes things are not as what they seem, as well as take action, as doing nothing will in turn get you nothing. The best pro is the main theme of this story, censorship. The author shows us what a censored society would look like. This helps our society steer clear of the trap of censorship, as it rips all emotion from all people and everyone becomes the same person. The main theme tells readers how important personal opinions and free speech really is. My favorite quote of this book is on page 100, when Bradbury writes, "If you hide your ignorance, no one will hit you and you'll never learn." This basically tells the reader that if you never put your opinions out there and get reactions from others, you will never learn anything about anyone else or yet yourself, backing up the main theme of the story. In the book review, Solary writes, "Today is 2015, and the society described in Fahrenheit 451 seems even more palpable than when the book was written in 1953. I agree with this statement because the book is more relevant nowadays than any other time in history. While the plot of the book may seem ridiculous to some, that exact mindset is the same reason why our society could fall into the trap of censorship." Solary also writes, "More than ever, we are intelligent. We have access to an ocean of information literally at our fingertips, but we are not wise." I agree with this statement as well, as it further explains how we struggle to use the info we do have. This info includes the writing in books, as well as the vast world of the internet. However, even with all of this, the answer to every question and almost anything we would ever want to know, we still seem to always have the same issues and problems. Like said, we are still not wise. Finally, Solary writes, "I believe reading is fundamentally important for wisdom, more than any other art form. Reading is solitary work. It demands silence and to let your ideas absorb the author's contest them, accept, or adapt. This statement also makes sense, as what makes books important is the fact that they make you think. These days we use the internet and TV, where it shoves the info into your brain at ridiculous speeds, giving you zero time to think about what you're hearing. As a result, we never actually learn anything. With reading, you are forced to understand what you're reading, and you may actually learn something or become a little wiser." Overall, I'd rate this book a 4 out of 5 stars. There were some slow-moving parts of the story and some characters that could have had some better development. However, this story had a great underlying theme that can really teach a reader to have their own opinions. Also, just an awesome original plot built around an unexpected object of books that still has a lot of suspense and plot turns that keep the book interesting throughout. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who enjoys a suspenseful story.